Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today I want to have a tank review on the BT-7 F32, and it is the first premium vehicle of the Heat Summer event that I want to have a look at. In this case, it is a full-fledged out review with all the statistics and a rundown on all the important information. The question is this tank worth it? And the answer for me personally would be yes, it is very useful, and in good tradition with event premium reward vehicles, it is a bit stronger than the Tech 3 counterpart, and you can even effectively up tier it, as I also shall demonstrate with one short clip later on. So before we talk about the tank in the tank review, credit where credit is due, I have to give a shout out to Gaijin here, because despite my vicious criticism on them, they still support me, and so they gave me all the 6 premium reward tanks, planes and ships in advance, so that I can have a look at it. So credit where credit is due. Okay, without further ado, let's go right into it. And as usual, I want to begin with the armor, and we can see that the hull is the typical BT-7 hull. So 20mm, there is a bit of a pike nose design, but it's only between 15 and 20mm, and so here even 50 cals can punch through. And even here, and even on the turret front, which is only 15mm. There is one little frame action going on, where there's a little bit of overlay between 3 plates. 1, 2, and 3. And even here probably this gun support. That's 45mm of flat armor. Will this save you against anything that you will very likely face? Not really. The side also paper thin, 15mm, 13mm, 10mm, 13, 4mm, 10mm. It is really paper thin armor, and it is probably not just safe from machine gun, but more is there to keep the crew from falling out rather than protecting the crew. So that's the armor. Then the X-ray reveals that we have only 3 crew members in the tank, of which 2 are very close together in the turret. So the tank is very easy to one-shot. And they are sitting on a pile of ammunition. Overall 50 rounds. I would recommend to take at least 4 shells out, and even half the ammunition is more than good enough for even exceptional successful battles. So then the power pack, the fuel tanks, radiators, transmission, engine are all in the back as usual. And that is probably the review. So it is very easy to penetrate, very easy to kill, one shot whatsoever. But that's not really the strength of this rank 2 battle rating 3.0 light tank. Let's have a look at the statistics. And let's begin with the mobility, which is excellent. So first of all, the BT-7 F32 has the very same exact stats as the BT-7, the Tech 3 version if you will, and it has the strongest engine with 400 horsepower, which is nearly twice as much as the German Puma. Then also the weight with 13.7 tons is not the heaviest in this comparison, just the Puma is lighter, so the horsepower to ton ratio is an exceptional 29.2. This is better than the majority of high tier main battle tanks, which are famous for getting really fast. Talking about really fast, the top speed is not bad by any stretch of the imagination with 54 kilometers per hour, but it is more or less average, and it is very limited. The tank can go, especially down hills and also on a paved road, in theory much faster, but it only has 3 gears. And also the reverse speed with 10 kilometers per hour, it's not really bad, it's not tragic like the Crusader Mach 3, but it's also not really exceptionally good, and the tank misses neutral steering. Those are the raw stats. So the horsepower to ton ratio is nearly twice as good as the Chaffee, the Puma and the Crusader, and you really feel this as well in the acceleration. I said that the tank has 3 gears, and in gear 1 and 2 something really strange is happening. First of all, the tank seems to have a lot of trouble with the clutch, with traction, and also with the control input. For example, if you go in a straight line, there are probably no problems, but the second you try to turn at low speed, the control input remains, like if you have a lag, and the tank keeps turning for not just a split second, but up to 1.5 to 2 seconds, and that's really disturbing. You really have to get used to it. Yes, you can counter steer, and yes, you can use the cruise control, but that costs a lot of speed, and this is something that I think is bugged. Gaijin should fix it, and that is not a problem that rises in third gear. Again, the tank could be faster, but the speed is limited to 54 kilometers per hour. But the fact that the horsepower to ton ratio is so good allows it to go through muddy terrain, medium terrain, and also uphill much faster than tanks that have similar or even better top speed. For example, it beats the Puma in every single category when it comes to cross-terrain performance. Now, finally, let's talk about the business end of the BT-7 F32, and therefore also the main difference to the normal Tech Tree BT-7, and that is the 76.2mm F32 gun. It is the very same exact gun that you get on the KV-1B, and it is very similar in terms of performance and also ammunition choice to the F34 gun that you can observe on the T-34 1941. And here you can see 50 rounds of ammunition. Again, take out half of it, that's more than good enough for any given battle. The reload is hefty though in comparison to all the other tanks, with 6.3 seconds for an ace crew. That is similar to the M24 Chaffee that has a similar sized gun. And there you can see that the turret rotation speed is also relatively low, with 16.0 degrees per second. That is really bad if you compare it to the Chaffee and also to the Crusader Mark III that, well, more than doubles that. So you can see that with the steering problem and the low turret rotation speed, close quarters dogfight is probably not the tank's greatest strength. But ambushing definitely is with the gun. I will just have to talk about the ammunition in just a moment. The gun handling further is not the very best, with only 6 degrees of gun depression, but that is still 1 degree more than the standard Soviet -5 degrees, and 25 degrees of gun elevation allows you to go into funny places and to just stay downhill and elevate the gun on target. But the elevation speed with 4 degrees per second is really bad, but that's throughout the board the same, except again for the Crusader Mark III. So the gun handling, not the greatest. Now let's come to the real magic, the real selling point, and that is the ammunition. The first shell that I want to talk about is the stock BR350A with the MD5 fuse, and this shell is really worth talking about for two reasons, because there is the decision to make between this one and the BR350B with the MD8 fuse, and I want to point out the difference because this needs to be explained. First of all, it is a very special shell because it is an APHE-BC round. That is rather unique only for the Soviets. It's a flat-headed shell and it has Soviet special slope modifiers, meaning that effectively it doesn't bounce. While the penetration values with 78mm do not really look all that impressive, and for example the Puma has, in terms of raw statistics, better ones, the Puma's 50mm shell just bounces all the time, and with this shell you just can low pan practically everything that you can come across. The next thing is 150 grams of TNT equivalent is very impressive. However, the fuse delay with 0.15 meters is actually less than the penetration power, so you can think of it of exploding in the armor, and while in practice it penetrates into the tank but explodes exactly after the armor. The cone of the shrapnels is not that very effective, so it works like the very early hash implementation, and this is then where we have to talk about the second shell type. And as I said, that is the BR350B with the MD8 fuse. It's also an APHE-BC round, so it also has those special Soviet slope modifiers. The penetration goes up just a little bit with up to 86 millimeters, and the muzzle velocity stays the same with 615 meters per second. The TNT equivalent goes down to just under 100 grams, but that is still very impressive. The main factor is the fuse delay of nearly a meter, and that acts then as your normal APHE shell in the normal post-pan effect. So this is the shell of choice in my opinion. It has not just a little bit of better penetration power, but it also acts a bit more normal, if you will. It is not really the end of the world if you use the first one, but this is actually the main shell of choice. The OF350M stock HE shell is nothing really special, but thanks to the lack of a heavy machine gun compared to the Chaffee, you should take some of them with you for some potato trucks, although you're fighting alongside the Russians, so you don't get as many available targets for this shell as with other nations' tanks. A special tempting shell would be the SH-354T, which is a shrapnel shell. Again, a rather unique Soviet shell, and it doesn't really have the most penetration. That goes from 37mm down to only 5mm. But again, very same muzzle velocity, impressive TNT filler of 85 grams, but it is not really all that great. I didn't really find it that useful. So that leaves us then with the last shell type, which is the D350A smoke round. Since the tank lacks any other source of smoke, like it doesn't have any sort of ESS, it doesn't have any smoke launchers, this is your only source of smoke, and you can just smoke up enemy sniper positions, you can smoke up a capture point that you rush into, you can just smoke up your retreat, but the rate of fire is not the highest, but you should always keep some of them with you. And as you can see in the comparison, the tank's raw stats don't really look all that amazing in comparison, but as you could see in the background gameplay, it actually works out very well. So as a final verdict, the tank has some ups and some downs, while the handling of the tank and also the handling of the gun is not the very best, and in certain parts it feels like it's really bugged. The raw performance of the top speed, the acceleration, and also the gun means that this tank is not just able to get behind enemy lines before the enemy lines have even established, it also can handle itself at top tier, as the next clip should show. So due to the fact that we are so fast, we can surround the enemy team and attack from the rear. And again, in the clip of this match, you can see again the very good slope modifiers and the performance, and there we rebalanced and added. Despite the spaced out crew compartment, we get a one shot and a God mode award, so this gets another 30,000 civil lines in, which is always welcome. So then there is the rest of the toolbox, which I have not even talked about. Thanks to the tank being tier 2 and battle rating 3.0, but mostly tier 2, you can scout with this tank, which is a very powerful tool in War Thunder, and also you can help your teams to repair. So this is not just a solo performer, but also a team player, and together with this gun, with those shells and that mobility, makes this tank very capable. Again, just certain parts of the handling are not perfect, and so when this Abrams just in a moment comes by, we shall see what the actual problem is. And that guy came unexpected, and there you can see the turret traverse, but despite the tank being angled, despite the relatively low penetration, we could easily one-shot this guy, but that is just a limit set, and so we couldn't penetrate here that guy. But that is what the tank can do. I think it is fantastic. I think it is amazing. It makes even some sort of civil lines, especially if you troll at top tier. And this is why I think that this is the next Soviet Pakwagen equivalent. And the Soviets have already a lot of fast tanks, but sometimes they just lack the smack. And so this tank delivers. And I truly think that this tank is worth it. I am against the practice of introducing such capable tanks, not in the tech tree, but always as rather rare premium tanks that then get sold on the marketplace for extraordinary prices. And while you can get your hands on this tank in this event with relative ease, you only have to fulfill 5 out of the potential 12 tasks. It's still that I guess after the event is over, it will take a very long time, if ever, up until the point that this tank gets able to be researched or to be won again in some sort of tournament again. And that is just a bad thing. That is a bad habit of Gaijin. That is a bad way to go with bringing balance to the game. I think for its battle rating, the tank is much like the Bugwagen, way too good, way too powerful, and that is just a problem. But hey, that's just my opinion. I brought you the objective facts beforehand. You could see the gameplay for yourself. This is what I was managing, what I was able to do in a couple of hours time, and even the first two games were absolutely amazing. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. If so, why not give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.